All right, friends, welcome back to the Applied Leadership Podcast. My name is Blaine Smith, and I'm joined today, as always, by my good friend and business partner, Brandon Young, where we are two friends with one question, half an hour, and zero script. And we got a good one today. I'm sure many of you, certainly anybody who has a LinkedIn account, will identify with this one in some way, shape, or form. We want to talk about the process of reaching out to people, or cold calling people, or making cold introductions. Generally speaking, maybe just this process by which we attempt to connect with people who we do not already have some sort of familiarity with or a relationship with. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this, Brandon. I have a sense of where you might start, but I think it's a relevant conversation. It could be one that's kind of funny, haha, because there's a lot of hilarious and like kind of blatantly just, Chinese bot stuff going on out there. But it's also a really important conversation because, our ability to connect with others, establish relationships is critical to growing our professional network, to gaining new business, to collaborating with folks, and really to moving the needle on anything important. We do need to work with others and expand our circle and do what Seth Godin would call find the others, which I think is really important. So there is a way to do this. There are ways not to do this. We are not the final authority on any of it, but we have a lot of experience with it. And I think we probably have a lot to say, and we've got a half hour to do it. So with that, Brandon, outreach, cold calling, intros, etc. Your thoughts?
I think it sucks.
It sucks meaning what? You don't like doing it, it sucks, or you think the current state of affairs sucks?
No, take that as you like it. No, it's tough. It's tough. That's what I think. I think, you and I have both been in some degree of professional selling ever since we left the Army. So it's been, 15, 16 years of doing that. And, the cold call is just like, it can feel like, some of the worst. And I think that I'll put it this way. When I first and foremost think about cold calling anybody, I immediately think, ugh. Like that's my initial reaction. Ugh, right? And I've been doing this game for a while, and I know that it's important. I know that it's necessary. And one of the things that you and I talk to people an awful lot about is, if you have some feels, maybe kind of like chase that back to its origin, like what's actually going on there. Don't just take the initial, cue that your body's giving you, but maybe just like ask a little bit, like what's going on there. And mostly what I have found is that the sense about it, when you're the one that has to make the cold call, right? When you've got to do the outreach, genuinely comes from a place of care and consideration. And the care and consideration is like, look, I got a job to do, and I respect that the people that I am reaching out to have a job to do. I respect that. I trust that their day is full and that they're doing meaningful work. At least I hope they're doing meaningful work that they want to be doing. And I don't want to interrupt them. I don't want that for somebody else, because if I'm being honest, I don't like being interrupted. I don't think anybody really does. But I really don't like being interrupted. And so I bring my own care into that situation, and I try to empathize with somebody else by putting myself in their shoes. And so like my initial reaction is kind of just like, oh, because I'm such a guy of extreme focus, right? I'm just like, this is the thing I'm doing right now, and I'm doing the thing right now. And it's not that anybody else isn't important in the thing that they're doing right now, but when your thing that you're doing right now interrupts the thing that I'm doing right now, I might have some feels about it. And I automatically put myself in their shoes and in their mode. So that's the first thing, is like just a genuine, tone of consideration. And I would say, if you're like me, and your initial reaction when you know that you've got to make some cold calls is just like, ugh, maybe it's coming from a good place, right? Maybe you're just considerate of others. You don't want to interrupt others. Um, and I have tried to use that in my career as a springboard into a, I would say, nice approach, maybe is a way to look at it, or a productive approach, or an outreach that is professional and kind.
Yeah.
Because I do them, and I'm doing them a lot right now. Like, I'm
Yeah.
doing, I know you and I are doing them a lot right now because, look, like, we've got a book that we've worked really hard on that we believe in, and we want to share it with the world. And the reason we want to share it with the world is because we truly believe that it is a contribution that will help leaders and people, right? That's why. And so that belief in what we have to offer helps me get over the initial ugh, and then I start to think of, well, how can I reach out to somebody in a way where I don't feel yucky about myself, and I'm just trying to invite somebody into the potential to explore if there might be something there.
Yeah, that last part really resonates with me. And it's taken me a long time in my life to kind of get over that hump, but I feel much better about it now, which is first, feel really good about what you're asking of somebody. And if you feel like you're really offering them something that's truly of value, it's a little less difficult to send out that kind of cold ask. It still might be tough, but it's certainly easier than just trying to, get somebody to buy something you don't believe in. That's a long day at the office if you're doing that all day, every day. And I know some people out there are doing that. And you and I have been there, to one degree or another. You said kind of kind, professional, you use some words that I think really make sense. As you were saying that, I jotted down a couple of notes, and there's two E words that came to mind for me, which are effort and earnest. And what I find, and I think we're actually in a fairly good position to assess this, because I would imagine we're kind of squarely in the middle right now of the, outbound requests and inbound requests, right? You and I our star has not ascended to the point where we're getting tons and tons of inbound, requests for our time, but we just can't answer them all. But we're also not just kind of starting out in the game where we're just constantly doing outbounds, trying to just get some traction or a foothold. We're kind of in the middle. Right. We get a fair amount of inbound stuff from people asking us to help out with a nonprofit or get advice on something, or, sell a health plan to our business. But right now, as you mentioned, we're doing a fair amount of outbound stuff too, right? We're trying to grow our business. We're trying to sell a book. So we're kind of in the middle. And the two E words I find to be really helpful for me in this process, both in sending out a cold communication and receiving them. So what makes it hard is that putting a lot of effort into a cold email or handwritten letter or something is that there's a legitimate chance that you're going to get zero back, right? So you've now put kind of a lot of effort into writing a really thoughtful email, doing your research. Maybe you write something that's handwritten and drop a book in the mail, and you get crickets back, and that sucks. Getting nothing back is the worst feeling ever. If you put a lot of effort, a lot of time and energy into sending out these really thoughtful outbound messages, and you get nothing back, it can be pretty crushing. And so it's natural to say, like, look, I'm going to dial down the amount of effort I'm putting into each one of these, because, like, I might get nothing in return. Like the ROI might be zero. And so I get that. But as you and I both know, you greatly increase your chances of having success if you put a lot of effort and a lot of thought into that message. So you still have to do it. You got to treat every one as if it's the most serious one you've ever done, and put that effort into it, and resist the temptation to say, look, it's a law of large numbers. I'm going to get some bot service to just send out a zillion things that are completely depersonalized. That must work for some people somewhere, or it wouldn't be a thing. But like, I can't delete those fast enough. I'm like, you didn't even make any effort whatsoever. Nothing. There's no effort put into this at all. You just hit the go button on some automated thing and like spammed me. So I can't get behind that, and I will not do that. So effort matters.
I don't appreciate it.
No, it's giving the whole thing a bad name, right? So individual effort per unit matters a great deal, I think. And the other part of this is earnest, right? Like, one of the things I've been saying to people as I've been reaching out about the book is to say, look, I'd love to catch up with you. I know we haven't talked in a while. Candidly, my partner and I have a book coming out next month, and I'm trying to share it with as many people as possible. And I'd love your support in helping me share the message. So I'm not saying like, hey, buddy, old pal, would love to just kind of catch up and buy you lunch sometime. I've been thinking about you a lot. And then spring on them like, oh, by the way, I have this book that I'd love to be on your podcast and talk about. Like, no. Like, let's be honest, upfront, and earnest in our approach. And if you have something that you kind of want from them, it's probably best just to kind of say that upfront. And let's be completely above board about the whole thing. And the disingenuous stuff also, I'm just like, I can't delete it fast enough when I get this, hey, I, came across you on LinkedIn and I couldn't help but recognize your outstanding resume. I'm like, I've got 10,000 of those. And I know the person, and then even if I accept them, and my least favorite ones of these are from Academy grads. I get them on LinkedIn. It's like, hey, as a fellow Academy grad, I'd just love to connect and expand my network. And it's this very light touch kind of thing. And I'm like, sure, who am I to say no to a fellow West Pointer that wants to connect?
Yeah, great.
And then in like 2 seconds, they hit me with some inbox message that's super long about getting me to invest in something. And I'm like, I feel manipulated. I feel like it's so transactional. And
That's it.
Yeah,
right
and I'm
there.
so disingenuous. So put some effort in and be earnest.
Yes. And do you know why you feel manipulated? Because you were.
Right.
That's the thing. And like, I want to pick up on this because I have such strong feelings about this. And we teach this when we teach our applied value creation module for business development and professional selling, which is really this, like sales professionals, please stop pretending like you're not there to represent your product, service, and organization.
Right. It says sales director, whatever, right on your business card. Like, own it.
Right. Just own it. And it's okay, and because here's the thing. Here's the truth. Okay. When you sit down with somebody in that context, right? Whatever context it is, if you're in a professional selling context and you're representing an organization, the person that you are sitting with knows why you're there. Okay? You didn't just drop in to their medical practice to say hello and see how their day was going. You dropped in to see if you could connect with somebody who you feel might benefit from your product or service. And I'm here to tell you, there's nothing wrong with that.
It's your whole job. It's okay.
There's nothing. It's your job. It's literally the thing that you do, right? And, or nonprofit business development folks who are sitting face to face with somebody who is a prospective donor. They know why you're there, right? It's okay. I think, I know, because we've talked about this a lot, is, like the first step in the process is establishing some rapport, right? And rapport leads to the establishment of trust. Now, when I say trust, it doesn't mean that you're going to hand the person your wallet and, walk away and say like, yeah, just watch this for me. I'm not what I'm talking about, but like the ability to have some kind of like trustworthiness that there can actually be a discussion, the earnesty by which you are talking about here. And when you don't actually just name it and own it, it's really hard to establish rapport because the person automatically thinks like, well, this person's not really being authentic with me. Obviously, look, you're a business development professional representing your organization. Like, that's fine. Instead of kind of like dancing around the topic, we share with people all the time, like, step one is an invitation, right? Be professional, introduce what you're there for, the mission, whatever it is, and introduce your intention and ask them, hey, is now a good time to talk about what you're doing with your fill in the product or service? Is now a good time to talk about, what we're doing? Like, so I have the honor of sitting on the board of directors for the Gallant Few. It's an organization I believe very deeply in because I have seen the work that they do in providing hope and purpose to veterans. And so my willingness to ask like, hey, do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing in terms of your donations, philanthropy efforts, because I'd love to kind of share with you what we're doing. And it's earnest, and it's okay to ask somebody, is now a good time? Does that feel good for you? And let them say, no, it's not. It's not a good time right now. And be honest with you, like, I'm up to my, I'm up to my elbows and alligators, or whatever the expression is. Help me out with this one. You're a
That's fair enough. Yeah.
Fine. I'm up to my neck in alligators, or whatever it is, right? Like, I got stuff to do right now. I don't have the time to talk to you right now, which would be a great opportunity, especially in a cold call situation, to follow that up with, hey, no problem. Like, I totally appreciate that. Is there a good time that I could come back and maybe try to connect with you, and be willing to receive the answer of, I don't know what that is right now. I'm sorry. Hey, no problem. And you know what you should do right then and there? Leave.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's respectful. And you know what you shouldn't do right there? I'm just jumping straight into a couple of do's and don'ts, because, like, sales professionals, I love you. I get it. It's hard. I want the best for you, right? You know what you shouldn't do right there is push past them and say, but let me just tell you about this one quick thing. Stop it, Uncle Rico. They don't want the 5-piece set right then and there. But you know what? Maybe they do want the 5-piece set someday, but now's not the day.
Yeah.
Be respectful. Like, for God's sakes, they're a human being. Give them a break. Put it on your list. Come back in a week. Call them the next day. Ask them if you do something different, but don't be there. Don't just be pushy and rude.
Yeah, I think what all of that is really great. And I think the overarching thought for me is that you have to expand the timeline a little bit. You got to be willing to play the long game, whether it's trying to grow your network to improve your professional career or your opportunities, whether it's, trying to sell your service or product. It's all the same, whether you're just kind of generally networking or you're in an official sales role. You really have to have the patience and the discipline to expand the timeline a little bit, because nothing stinks worse than desperation, right? I don't care whether you're a single guy in a bar or a salesperson or a nonprofit founder whose hair is on fire, and you're like, you got to figure out this thing. If I'm a discerning investor, I am not investing in a nonprofit founder whose hair is on fire and like needs it right away. If you pressure me to invest in something on a short timeline, I'm just saying no out of principle, because I'm like, I can't trust what's going on here. Do you know what I mean? I'm not buying anything
Absolutely.
that I'm being pressured to buy.
Absolutely.
All of those things. And it's the same thing. I'm not going to connect with somebody that randomly reached out to me on LinkedIn or over email if they're just really hot and we got to talk right away. Like, no, it's a no out of principle. Because I think part of this is dealing with the no's. Sometimes people are just busy. Sometimes it's not the right time. Sometimes they're just genuinely not interested right now. It could be any of those things. But if you can accept that in stride, like a grown-up, and keep taking well-placed shots, putting in the right amount of effort and doing it in a way that's earnest, eventually the numbers game does work out for you. But you can't say, like, I'm going to send $1 million out right now, or I'm going to push really hard right now to try to collapse that timeline, because it doesn't matter how good you are. It's very hard to collapse the timeline on these real relationships that are going to lead to the bigger outcomes you're going for. So if you want someone to be your mentor, if you want someone to be on your board, if you want someone to demo your product, like, you got to be willing to take a much longer timeline in order to do that. I mean, the sales cycle in our business that we're in right now is sometimes, over a year and a half, 2 years even, from when we might have an initial conversation with somebody that's interested in doing leadership development, to when they actually kind of get that the timing is right, the budget is right, the people in place are just right now, that we're ready to go ahead and try to put something in place. And like, it may be that, we miss out on an opportunity this year, and in another year and a half, we have a chance to do a full year engagement with an organization that's a 6-figure deal or something, because we just stayed in touch and we wanted to do what was best for them. And they knew that, and we gave them the time.
Worth the wait.
Yeah, absolutely worth the wait. And so I think that's really, really important with this too, is that if you're a young person and you're just like really excited to kind of grow your career and your opportunities, you got more time than you think. Take the long road of like genuine relationships. Even if you're a salesperson, you got to make your quarter. the way you do that is by investing this quarter in things that might come to fruition 3 or 4 quarters from now. It just doesn't work any other way that I'm aware of. So I think that's really, really the way to go.
Yeah.
You got to just slow things down a little bit and take a little longer view.
Yeah. I think, well, I'll ask actually. We're pretty steeped in more of a business to business professional selling context. Do you think that this only relates to B2B sales, or do you think it also relates to direct to consumer sales?
No, it's a really good question. And like, not to get like really into the semantics here, but I think a lot of that is marketing and advertising, right? So if you're doing like, B2C, a lot of that stuff that's targeted to the masses is, try to understand your target demographic that you think you're trying to sell to, understand what they're interested in, understand where they're at, and then give them a message that will appeal to them, at the right time, in the right place. And I think there's more kind of marketing advertising to be done mostly with that. Now, if you're going door to door selling candy bars or something like that, and you're going B2C, that might be a bit different. But I think for the most part, that's still the way it works. And I've had plenty of people come to my door, I'm sure you have too, that are, with the competing cable company or phone company, or with, a window washing service or whatever. And I think the rules still apply there. I mean, if you come by and you're professional and you say, hey, my name's Blaine, and I own a small business in the area, and we do landscaping and exterior home cleaning, pressure washing, etc. You've got a beautiful home. And if you ever need any services like that, I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about what we have to offer. I think we do a great job, and we have competitive prices. So, if you don't mind me asking, do you have a current, lawn service or whatever? Like, that's a good, warm, earnest intro. And if they say, hey, I'm not interested right now, then maybe you say like, totally get it. I don't want to waste any of your time. Would it be okay if I leave, one of my brochures in my car just in case you ever need something? If they say no, then you say like, hey, no problem. I hope you have a great rest of your day. If they say, yeah, that's cool, then say, hey, thanks for taking that. Please check in. Like, you can still do that in a way where, because the chances are, if you own a home, you're eventually going to want the pressure washing or the landscaping because you're out of town or whatever. And you'll remember that great guy or gal that came by and was decent to you, and you're going to have their little card and you're going to call them up. And that's how B2C works too.
Yeah, that's right. And again, it goes back to your point of extend the time horizon. Like I tell people this all the time, like, look, man, like there's no one call close. Okay. You might get one a couple times in your career. Congratulations. That's great. But if every time you're stepping up to the plate, you think you're going to knock it out of the park and you're going to get, you're going to become the king or the queen of the one call close, like, hey, good luck, man. Because I'll tell you right now, what you're probably going to end up being is actually the king or the queen of the sympathy sale. And that's the person who says like, you know what, fine. Like, I'll use your product. Like I'll do the thing. You'll probably get one shot through the opportunity, and they'll be like, okay, done.
Yeah.
Right. I saw that.
You know what, fine. I'll set up a 15-minute call with you. You can pick my brain for 15 minutes, and they're going to give you 15 minutes of their time, and they're never going to talk to you again.
That's right. Right. Because they'll be like, and because one of the things that they have the ability to do is say like, hey, I heard you out. Hey, I tried your product.
Yeah.
It's, you know what, we're happy with what we have. Thanks. What's your defense to that? What's your response to that? Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but nothing. No, here, I gotta go. Right. I want to shift the gears on this one
right
here, because I think that in the last bit of our time together, let's talk about some more like really tactical, even best practices. And maybe we can even put it in the context of, you're trying to grow your network. You're trying to reach out to people. You're trying to connect, whether it's to grow a network, you're looking for a job, or you're looking to connect with an organization to see if, maybe your services, might line up. Let's talk about some things that actually are really helpful. And I would just be honest with you. What I'm thinking in the back of my mind is, we're veterans. We talk to a lot of veterans. We have a lot of veterans in our network. I know a lot of veterans listen to this. I know there's a lot of people who are making that big jump, the transition from the military out, or they're out of the military and they're looking to kind of expand their network or maybe see what else is out there. That's kind of the avatar, if you want to call it that I have in my mind. So let's just kind of talk about some things that would be, really productive or beneficial when you do that. I think we've already talked a little bit about earnesty. One thing that I want to bring into the conversation is like, do a little bit of homework, just like take some time and, do some homework. And when you make that outreach, try to be more interested than interesting, be interested in what I'll tell you what, I got I made a comment on a veteran's post. We're not connected. I think we're maybe like second degree of separation. And it was kind of a neat post about, Ranger school and a lesson learned. I was just like, oh man, that's super cool. Like good on you, super thoughtful, appreciate what you're doing. Guy reaches out to me with a connection request and was just like, hey man, like I see we've kind of run in the same kind of circles, Ranger, this kind of stuff, like getting out in a year, I would really appreciate it if I could just kind of like touch base with you. And I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wonderful conversation. Happy to do it. Very small degree of homework. Guy saw that I was a Ranger, willing to reach out. Freaking delightful dude. I'm looking forward to being connected to him for as long as the rest of the journey is. But step one, maybe, or something to think about, do a little bit of homework.
Yeah.
Be interested in what's going on.
Totally agree. And I've got a couple of quick do's and don'ts if you want to get really tactical. I'll dovetail off to your homework. So a do is be specific, not creepy, but specific. So if you want to talk to somebody about something, be specific about what you'd like to talk to them about or what area of expertise that you're most interested in that they have. So it shows you've done some homework. You're also scoping the problem a little bit to where it's like, hey, I just want to pick your brain. Like, it's too vague. Nobody wants to do that. But if you say, I'd love to spend, 15 or 20 minutes, if you could spare it, talking to you about this specific thing, then I think that's really helpful. So be specific, not creepy, but specific. So there's that. What I would say that you shouldn't do is name drop, right? So if you want a warm intro from somebody to somebody else, we're talking about something different, and that's a whole different conversation. But like, if somebody wants to make a genuine warm intro for you, that's great. But don't reach out to someone and say, hey, I know so-and-so, or I used to work with so-and-so, or I was on so-and-so staff. Like, don't do that. At least for me, that's a huge turnoff. So do be specific. Don't name drop. Another one here that I was going to go with. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank. I had a couple more.
Is it name drop related?
No, so do be helpful and useful to others on social media, like genuinely congratulate them, promote them, whatever, like you did with this post. Don't comment on people's things just to show how smart you are or to get your name out there buzzing about or to kind of like only half-heartedly thank them for their comment. So I think there are good and bad ways to do this. A good way to do it is if you read somebody's Substack post that you think is really sharp and you like share that, share that person's thing
Ben
and
Davis.
say, yeah, Ben Davis, Joe Quinn, you're like, I'm just sharing this from my friend Sam Pressler or Ben Davis because I think it's really smart and these two things about it really jumped out to me and I think it's worth a read. Check it out. Yeah. If I really feel that way, then yes, I want to lift them up and I want to share that. What I don't want to do is go into a post about something that like is sort of interesting to me or is maybe in my wheelhouse and go like, oh, great post, and show how smart I am. That is not a good way. I mean, you will get people's attention, but I don't think that's taking the long view. So share and amplify to be helpful, truly. Don't get into the muck just because you want to have something to say. So those are my two quick do's and don'ts.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I want to make sure that we make the distinction between a referral and a name drop. If one of your colleagues says, hey, reach out to fill in the blank, I let them know that I gave you their contact information, they're going to reach out. That's an appropriate time for you to say like, hey, I just wanted to reach out. I've been referred by, one of your former colleagues, blah, blah, blah. Would love to chat with you about fill in the blank, being specific. That's very different than, hey, I'm just reaching out. By the way, General McChrystal was my commander twice, and you should know that first and foremost about me. It's like, okay, like you and half of SOF, but anyways,
not a distinct value proposition.
Yeah, exactly. So just make sure that you're making the difference between, mentally at least, between a referral and name dropping. And just like everything, team, very few things in life are black and white. And there's a lot of gray, there's a lot of nuance here. So just be thoughtful, be earnest about the way that you do it and the way that you reach out, like, and I get it, like Blaine and I are, we're pounding away and we're reaching out right now because, again, we feel like we have something to offer. And I will just tell you another really helpful do again, and I'm going back to the referral aspect of things. If you've been trying to get in touch with somebody in an organization and it's just not working out, right? You've tried the cold calls, you've been earnest, you've dropped by, you've been respectful, you've done these things, you're like 7, 8, 9 times into the process of this. Maybe take a step back and see if there's somebody in your network who can connect you to this person. Maybe see if you do actually have some kind of mutuality. Maybe there's a second or a third order connection. Maybe see if it's somebody really important. I know we did this a lot in the medical sector, is like, you know what, maybe show up to things that matter to them, like one of their conferences. Maybe it's a, MGMA type conference, a medical group management, and MGMA, what's the last one? Administrator conference.
Administrator?
I think, maybe, yeah. Show up to something that matters to them, or maybe put yourself in a position by understanding where they're coming from or where they're at, or being supportive of their efforts, be a little generous. That might get something out of it. And I want to finish my remarks on that in terms of generosity is be generous to be generous, not for reciprocity. Generosity with the intent of reciprocity is not generosity at all. And so remember that, like, be generous out there. And I'm going to be really honest. That's been something I have had to really learn. And I will tell you, like, working with you, Blaine, has really helped me to shape the way that I view generosity. And we've been working together for 15, 16 years now. And I don't think it comes from a nefarious place. I think it probably comes from a place of, look, like, there was a decade of my life where I couldn't tell my wife where I was going. I couldn't tell people what I was doing just because of the nature of being a special operations soldier. And that's just the way it was. And so I had to get through and get past some of that kind of scar tissue. So when somebody would say, hey, can you introduce me to this? I'd be like, whoa, yo, or, hey, what do you think? I'm like, and I've learned to be a lot more generous, with my time, with my introductions. I just introduced, two friends of mine yesterday where I'm just like, hey, like, I don't know if there's something here, but like, I'm happy to put you guys together. But be generous for generosity's sake. And, I'd be remiss if I don't mention this, like, you just might be shocked with how much that blessing is returned tenfold to you. You just might be.
Yeah.
Wow. Don't look for it, but you just might be shocked with that blessing. And oh my goodness, man, like, we have had so many people who have just been so generous and just been so kind and thoughtful and a blessing to us, rooting for us, genuinely rooting for us. And I never did anything for them with the expectation that they were going to do something back for me.
Yeah, there's one more thing I want to mention. It's basically just a double stamp on what you just said, and I'll close us up. We've talked a lot about like things not to do and what's yucky about doing this, but one of the things that I hope everyone can keep in mind is that reaching out to someone that you haven't talked to in a while, or offering someone that might genuinely help them, you can feel like you're bothering them. So I think a lot of people struggle with the fact that I don't want to reach out cold because I'm sure I'll be bothering them. But I'm here to tell you, like, just put the shoe on the other foot and think about it. When someone you haven't talked to in a while, an old friend from the Army or someone you worked with 10 years ago, reaches out to you and says, hey, I'd just love to catch up sometime. It feels good. It feels good to know that they're thinking about you. It feels good that they took the effort to reconnect and absorb a little of that discomfort. If it says like, hey, this may not be your cup of tea, but I came across this and I think it might really benefit you, or you might really like it. That is a positive thing to do. And people more times than not are happy to hear from you. So everything we've said over the last half hour, I don't want to discourage anyone from remembering that if you are reaching out to someone for a real reason, um, and you just feel a little bit of trepidation because you're afraid, like you don't want to pester them, you don't want to bother them, that's something worth getting past and getting over and saying like, nope, I'm going to go first. I'm going to lead here a little bit,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do the reaching out, because when you do it with kind of the right heart posture, with the right intention, people know
Yep.
that, and almost always they're thrilled to hear from you. So please do that if that's what's going on right now.
I want to reframe what you just said and then hand it back over to you to finish this up. Let's reframe those outreaches from a cold call to a lukewarm call.
Yeah.
Because it's not actually a cold call. You know this person, there's some history there. Just reach out. I called on the phone an old Army buddy who happens to be in a very prominent position of authority yesterday. And we served together a very long time ago. And I got to tell you, like the warmth, the answer on the phone, the warmth is like, hey, this is a blast from the past. It was well received, and sure, we haven't talked in a bit. We kind of follow each other or see each other comment here and there. Make that call a lukewarm call. Reach out, because I do agree with you, Blaine. People want to hear from us, and you might be surprised to see how many people are actually rooting for you or really care.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that reframe. I think that's going to be super helpful for people. We hope you found the last 30 minutes or so helpful. I know we covered a lot of ground, but if you have questions on this or anything else, please send them to us. We'd love to talk about them on the podcast. You can send anything to contact@appliedleadershippartners.com. We'll read every one of them. We'll try to talk about as many as we can here on the show. And we just always love hearing from you. So with that, thanks for listening this time, and we'll see you next time.